the country, trying to explain to people what this movement is. For those that aren't familiar with the movement, maybe they've never heard of the movement. I just want you to just give me a brief in terms of what exactly the Movement for National Renewal is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me start from the genesis. You made reference to Article 43, and that is Article 43 of the Constitution. Now, that article places a duty on each and every citizen to be of service to his country. Sometimes people think that they can only make demands. They can make demands to the government, but before you can do that, you have a duty to your country. And that duty, you have to discharge it in various ways. And I've been doing my part. I think we have had a conversation before where I did tell you that I was a lecturer at the university for about 20 years. I lectured not for the money, but as a way of service to the country. And I also mentioned to you, I think, that during the same time, this was, I think, soon after 1991, we set up an NGO called Legal Resources Foundation. It was a civic education foundation, and its objective was basically to educate people on their rights. And we created it at a time when there was a great excitement about our return to a multi-party system of government. So we had branches literally in all the 9 provinces then. And obviously, the bulk of my... By the way, did you finish your...
Just about.
Your program, law program? Just about, yeah. Okay. So the bulk of my practice was largely in public interest litigation. And it was all about trying to get government and public institutions to operate as they should. That is how I've been able to save my country. Then I think a couple of years ago, some friends, both in Zambia and in the diaspora, were urging me to say, why don't you consider going into politics and seek election to public office? Now, that is a different kind of ask, okay, because going into politics is something I never liked, because over the years I'd seen so much damage that has been done to people. I saw how President Kaunda was treated when he left office. I also saw how President Chiluba was treated when he left office. So our politics has been brutal. Yeah, so I wasn't very keen on that in joining. But later on, when we had the election of 2021, and I think I and many other people, I think thought we're on the right trajectory now. But unfortunately, there's been a sense of disappointment. Again, you can't go on just complaining. And I think there is a time when you have to step forward. And so a couple of friends came and urged me to say, why don't you consider this? And it's not that you have a choice. You have a duty to serve your country. Then I had to think about how to do it, because if you have to do it, then you have to do it differently. And you have to do it in a way that you succeed where others have failed. And that forced me to be able to reflect, to understand how we've managed this country from 1964 up to date. What are the mistakes that we have made? What are the things that we have done which we should not have done? What are the things that we ought to have done which we have not done? Upon that reflection, that is how I came up with a document where I was saying a call to national reflection, which I released on the 2nd of October 2025. And I said I was ready to serve, but I wasn't going to do it alone. And I was looking forward to others joining me, because no leader, because what we've been made to believe in the last 61 years is that one person can transform the country. Impossible. Okay, so the responsibility to transform a country rests with each and every citizen. Each and every person in Zambia has to step forward and do his part. And I threw that challenge to say, I am ready, but I won't do it alone. As long as there are people who are willing to join hands with me, I'm ready. In addition, I had to reflect on a number of things that need to be in place in order to succeed. There is no point in going into something and then you know you're going to fail. There is no point. You and I are lawyers. You'll be a lawyer, a legal practitioner very soon. You learn that you don't go to court if you haven't researched your law. Okay, you also don't go to court if you haven't checked the evidence that you have. And you also have to believe that the case that you have is strong enough. You do your part. So I had to reflect on these 10 questions, which I believe that if Zambians can answer them in the affirmative, then I would be willing to be of service. I think that's the genesis that led to the formation of the Movement for National Renewal. It's simply a realization that we have to change the way we have done things in the past 61 years. Because when you look at the performance in the last 60 years, Zambia today is worse off than it was in 1964. And secondly, most of the countries of the world that were poorer than Zambia in 1964 are far much better than Zambia today. So obviously, you can't go on doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So that is why I'm calling for a national renewal, that Zambia requires complete renewal as opposed to doing the same thing over and over and hoping for a different result.
One of the first things that you said was that you were looking for a specific number of people to sign up.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to assume that this is you trying to find evidence. But
yeah.
Can I ask you why that particular number? I think it was 1 million.
1 million, yes.
Yeah. Why that particular number? And what does that number form in terms of evidence?
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at, it's like you have an idea.
Yeah.
You have to be very arrogant to believe that your idea is acceptable to the people, right? You can't just wake up one morning to say, I have this idea and everybody's going to follow it. Okay, I'm not that arrogant, but I needed proof to say, okay, I'm calling for renewal. There are these 10 points that I'm sure we'll talk about one by one.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, if people agree with me, then I need proof that that is the case. And what is 1 million? 1 million, with our population well in excess of 20 million, 1 million is basically less than 5% of the population. Now, if you have an idea and you can't convince less than 5% about your idea, then obviously your idea is a non-starter. Okay, that is the premise on where I'm coming from. And I said, well, I need at least 5% of the population to believe in these ideas. And if they do, that is the proof that I needed. Okay? Because what you're trying to do is something completely different. We say, listen, guys, we have evidence of the last 60 years that a lot of the stuff that we've done don't work. Why don't we try something else? Okay? It's easy to criticize. Our politics have always been about criticism, insults, and so forth. But those don't move the country forward. We need ideas. Okay? And that is how we came up with this idea of 1 million. Now, what does 1 million represent? It represents the people that have bought into the idea. And there's a subsequent document which I issued on 12th of October. After this, there was a lot of excitement that was generated, and I said, well, I have to move forward. And I said, well, I have to leave my practice and dedicate my time in raising this 1 million people as proof of the fact that they have accepted these new ideas. And that is what I've been doing. Now, what does the 1 million reflect? It reflects the basic, your threshold. The idea is that those ideas on their own, they mean nothing. Therefore, you have now to occupy political office to be able to implement those ideas. Now, you cannot just wake up one morning and say, others have done it, but I'm not that brave. Yeah. And I said, you know what, before you move into a political party, who is with you? Because we have seen so many one-man political parties. And there's need to do different things. And I said, well, it's very clear in that statement. We need 1 million people. Once we reach that 1 million, we now make a transition to be able to seek political office and be able to implement these ideas. Now, that 1 million represents people that have bought into the idea of renewal. From the 1 million, that is where you expect to choose your people that would contest for election to be members of parliament, people that will choose to stand for election as mayors, councillors, and so forth, because they've bought into these ideas.
But is there a thin line between a civic movement and a political movement? Because obviously the goal here is, yes, it's a civic movement, but in reality the goal really is a political movement.
Well, you have to morph.
Yeah.
Like right now, we're simply a civic movement, which we're operating in line with. If you ask me for a legal basis for that, I'll point to Article 43. Article 43 does not require a formal structure. Like I was having a discussion with somebody to say, who is the leader of this? And I said, well, we're all leaders here. Okay, we're all equals here. We haven't rushed into trying to put who is the president, who is this, which is always the case. People fight over who is the president before they have done any work. What we are saying, we're all equal here, and our mandate right now is to be able to see whether we can collect 1 million signatures of people that believe in the ideas we are sharing. And then after that, you have to morph into a political party, and in that case, you have to comply with the provisions of the law. In this case, you're talking about Societies Act. Yeah. I know people have talked about, you're already a political party. You said, no, as a political party, you need a piece of document describing you as a political party. We are not a political party. You know, just
even though people reference, you see, that's the thing, people reference you as, and when I say people referencing, what I mean is sometimes I look at the newspapers and you'll see this just like I have. You know, you'll see certain people, you know, call you out, and they'll throw around from a political connotation. And I sit and I wonder and I think, is it that people just don't understand what's going on here, or maybe the reality is they've accepted something that you haven't accepted yet?
Yeah. You know, I think this is the reason why I accepted the invitation to be able to clarify that. You see, we seem to have like a template that you have to follow for a political formation. Now, we have defined that template because that template has never worked. So we are saying, no, let's try something different. But I think people are stuck in their ways of looking at things, so that they have to put you in a box that makes sense to them. So for them, for some people, it makes sense if only they can look at me in the prism of a politician. But not as part of a civic movement. So it is the way in which people perceive things. But when you become a political party, there are processes you have to follow. Okay, but again, the other problem, of course, is lack of attention to details. You know, I'm sure you learn very soon that the difference between a good lawyer and a bad lawyer is that a good lawyer pays attention to details. Yeah, so there is, I think we're also very casual in ascribing names. We liberally throw around names. But I think it is important to start paying attention to some of the words and expressions that we use.
So it doesn't stress you. And I don't know how better to put this, but it doesn't stress you, for example, when you hear, a particular minister say, turn around, or we're going to meet you at this place. It doesn't bother you purely because they don't understand what you're trying to do.
No, it doesn't bother me. You know, one of the things that we have to understand and respect, we live in a democracy, right? You're at liberty to say whatever you want to say. I can't control what can come out of your mouth. Yeah. But the only thing I can control is my reaction. Yeah. I haven't responded to everything. Yeah. I don't respond to everything. And where necessary, I come out to clarify. And in other instances, you just let this go. Does it stress me? Yes, in the initial stages. it's a very stressful arrangement. I mean, I have moved away from the comfort of my law practice, where I operate in a structured environment. I have a receptionist downstairs who checks who to see me and not to see me in a structured and controlled environment. But once you join the public, those controls are no longer there. You have to meet everybody and entertain everybody. So you have to do that. Yeah. But it has also been an exciting experience, because you get to see the challenges that the country faces, what people are going through. And also for me, at least I've done one thing, and one of the things I've discovered is that, and which is very sad, is that the majority of our people that are educated are least interested in the political process of this country, are least interested in joining. But it is amazing how much writing they churn out on the various platforms. Okay, they are so busy on Facebook, they are so busy on X, they are so busy on WhatsApp, churning out ideas. But the truth of the matter is that this country is not short of ideas. The challenge that this country faces is the ability to have those ideas implemented, translated into policy and implemented. And the sad thing is that no country can develop without the involvement of its best minds. That's the reason we go to school. Now, the sad thing is that most educated people have decided to shy away from this process. And I have had to move away from that. So let me get involved. I've theorized for 30 years. I said, let me get involved and see what kind of difference I can make. And that is why I am doing what I'm doing, and in the hope that there'll be some kind of traction. And if people buy into the ideas we are sharing, well and good. But at least I've moved away from being an armchair critic into
actually trying to do something.
Do something, yes. You can't just be seated there. You know, it's easy. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, you sit there and you say, this minister has done this, the president has done this, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's easy. Now, if you think you can do better, why don't you step forward? Okay, if you're that educated, you know, the most disappointing group, I'll have to say this, are the people that have been privileged to go to school. Okay? Now, though whatever writings you do, they don't mean anything. Okay? You have to step forward, get involved, and assume a certain office or whatever, and then only then can you implement those ideas. Okay? You can't share, okay, maybe there are instances where you can share your thoughts, but the most important thing is that we need to get involved. We need to get involved.
There's different levels of getting involved.
Yes.
And I don't want to be too critical here.
Yes.
But I will. Let me be a little critical here. There are certain people in society that I hold to very high regard.
Mm-hmm.
I can put you in the bracket. I'll put Elias people in the bracket and others. And there's a reason I mentioned Elias,
Mm-hmm.
by the way. I'm sorry to name drop him. But I remember when he was very active in politics, I always used to say to myself, this thing that he's in is not, I hate to say it, but it's not for him because he's pure. And that's the way I see you and certain other people, that you're too pure for this thing called politics, particularly Zambian politics, because there is a way that it just, it morphs into something evil and destroys really, really good, pure people. And so I wonder, and I think to myself, are you not better off in the space that you were in, where you can still make meaningful contributions? Because like you said, we all have a duty. I have zero interest in going into politics. My duty is here and holding those accountable. That's my role. Crossing that line might be something that I may feel like you might think, maybe not. And that's the way I see you. So I don't know if you've gotten any feedback like that from others to say, but why?
Yes. Yes, they say that. I've had a lot of people have said to me, "You crazy. What are you doing? You're crazy." And at the end of the day, and what has happened actually, I've lost friends. By the way, I've lost friends. There are people simply said, you've become radioactive. I can't interact with you. But my brother, we have to make sacrifices for this country. No country has ever developed without sacrifices. Okay? Now, and also, I mean, somebody was talking about the fact that, you know what, when you step away, don't think I thought there'll be a vacuum created. Another person will fill it up. Okay? You're going to have a person that is least qualified, least competent, controlling you. Okay? But if you stay away, the country won't come to a standstill. The country will go on. And that is why we have a duty, those of us. It is a huge sacrifice, okay? To be able to say, people think getting involved in this process is about money or anything like that. Unless you're a crook. Technically, it cannot be money because there are better ways of earning money than earning it from politics. Okay, so it is a huge sacrifice. Yes, people have told me. Now, the reason why I've made this particular move is very simple. I have spent 35 years trying to see how best we can consolidate democracy in Zambia. But what I've seen in the last 35 years is regression in terms of our democratic standing. Okay? I'm a lawyer. I can tell you what pains me is when I started practice, I would go to court and I would tell the client to say, you know what, we have a good case. We're going to win. And indeed we would win. Today, no lawyer, no sane lawyer would actually give such a guarantee to a client, because of how broken our system is. Systems are broken. Now, it is one thing to sit there and criticize. It is another thing to step forward and do something about it. And that is what I have done. When I look back, all the cases I've argued, I'm sure you've read a good number of them. Yeah, they make a good reading to law students. But what have they done in terms of consolidating our democracy? Zero. Okay? So then you step forward that maybe let me try and scale it up to another level. Let me try something new, maybe to bring about different result. So that is basically the rationale for my involvement. Okay? But the point is this, no country can move forward without some level of sacrifice. And this is my form of sacrifice that I've had to do. I mean, I said, for example, it was very painful, by the way, on the 12th of October, when I decided to leave the firm. I rarely cry. I mean, I cried when my father died, but the second time that I had to cry was when I was leaving my practice. It was a very painful decision, but one that was necessary because I couldn't do both. I couldn't continue to operate as a lawyer and at the same time be committed to the movement. I had to give up one of them, and it was the practice that I had to give up.
So let's talk about these 10 questions.
Yes.
And I'm going to start from where you've just left off.
Yes.
You know, leaving the law firm. Leaving the law firm is a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the questions that you ask among the 10.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about the sacrifice and a discipline and asking the question, are we prepared as a people to make those hard sacrifices?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about rejecting corruption as one.
Mm-hmm.
Are we there yet?
We're not there.
Considering that the society is,
yes,
I'm going to borrow your phrase, but the society is broken. A broken society believes that you cannot grow and you cannot function without corruption.
Well, are we there yet? No, we're not yet there. That is why it's a question. Okay? I'm asking people, are we prepared to do these 10 things? Right? So we have to start from somewhere. And that is why if people, I've made it very clear, if people can answer these questions in the affirmative, then I'm ready to serve. Now, what am I saying about sacrifices? It's exactly what you've pointed out. Now, when you look at corruption is a best example that you have mentioned. What does it mean when you are involved in corruption? It's like you go to the Ministry of Lands. Those guys, they tell you, you know what? If you give me something, you can get your certificate of title today. But if you don't, you can get it in 30 days. Are we prepared as Zambians to say, you know what? Forget it. I'm not paying you anything. I'll wait for 30 days. Okay? That is how you fight corruption. Corruption is not the job of the anti-corruption alone. It is the job of each and every one of us. Now, why is there corruption? Because there are people that are willing to pay those bribes. Okay? That is a sacrifice. So you are going to sacrifice something that you should have obtained within a day by paying something. You're now saying, forget it. I'm not paying that. I'm going to wait for 30 days. Even if you tell me, come another 30 days, I am coming after another 30 days, but I'll never, never take out money out of my pocket to pay you. That is what good citizenship requires. It's an obligation that we have, okay? But when you continue doing that, you are providing food for corruption incentive for corruption to continue. Those are the sacrifices we're talking about. And I don't see any other way, okay, now of us transforming the country without making such sacrifices. And it is for each and every one of us. It also requires a civil servant to be able to say, yes, I've been making, my salary is 10,000, but I've been getting another 10,000 through bribes. Can I stop? I would like to stop. I will limit myself to my 10,000 that I'm entitled to. Okay? That again is a sacrifice which that public servant will be making. You know, when is offered money to say, can you speed up my title deed? Here is 10 whatever, 1,000. The civil servant should be able to say, no, I'm not getting your money, but can you come in 2 weeks and get your papers? And I will do it because it's my job to do it. That is the kind of reasoning, that is the kind of sacrifice that we need to make as a people. But corruption just destroys the country. A country cannot develop without, if at all people engage in one form of corruption or the other. Okay? We're also talking about the fact that, for instance, even if you know me as a friend, don't give me a contract because we are friends. Give me a contract because you believe I can deliver, not because we are friends. Now, that is the kind of mentality, renewal that we need to have in this country. That is the only way we can move the country forward, you know. But if you give me a contract, you know I'm incompetent and I can't deliver. What am I doing? What are you doing? You are destroying the country. And this is what we've been doing in the last 60 years. And that's why the country is where it is. So sacrifice is important. And that is something that we all have to do collectively. Okay? There is no point in some people lining up their pockets and others are working hard. Okay? It's not fair. So those are the changes that are critical for the renewal of the country. The question is, are Zambians prepared to do that? Okay? And the signal for that is that all the Zambians that are willing to do that, then let's join hands. Let's join hands. Be part of the movement. And if you believe that is possible, then let's join hands. Okay, that's basically one of the things that we're talking about.
You also talk, and this is the very first question, and it hit me when I read this statement, by the way, when you first released it. It's the first one that hit me, because you talk about understanding the crisis. Do we understand the crisis?
Yeah.
I don't think many people. First of all, there are two things.
Yes.
I don't think many people think there's a crisis.
Okay.
But then I also think that there are a lot of people who don't understand the crisis.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very interesting. That's why it's number one, right? Now, let me give you this very simple, this very something that I was thinking about. It is important, and that's where the starting point is. We need to reach consensus. Are we okay in Zambia? Should we be where we are? Given everything that we have as a country, the minerals, the arable land, the amount of water we have, should we be where we are? The answer is clearly no, we shouldn't. Zambia should be a first world country, not a third world country. It should be the first world country. Now, we need to reach consensus on that. We have to forget our partisan lens and be able to come to a national consensus that is the case. It is very, very important for the country to reach that. Now, what we have is that we have divided. There are people who say, oh, Zambia is doing fantastically. Others are saying, oh, Zambia is right in the sewer. But the point is that we need to reach consensus on this. The truth of the matter is that Zambia is not in a good place. We should have been in a better place than we are as a country. Now, that is very important. If we reach that understanding, the next thing is, what are we going to do about it? I'll give you a very practical example. I was reading the story about Princess Kasune. 17, she's married. 21, she's diagnosed as HIV positive. Now, that is a very, very inspiring story. Now, what did she do? She accepted her position, and I said, my status will not define me. She rose above that. Is it a couple of days ago she was celebrating her 50th birthday? I'll give you my own story of my sister who was in a similar position. But she couldn't accept her status. She couldn't change her lifestyle. And what happened? We buried her a couple of years ago. Okay? Now, that has everything to do with the mindset. You need to accept. Nobody goes to the hospital unless they have accepted that they are sick. And even as a country, we need to accept that Zambia is not okay. Let's not lie to ourselves to say Zambia is okay. Zambia is not okay. And the advantage I have is that I've lived long enough. What you see, I mean, today people are celebrating free education. I can tell you, it's not free education. I'm a product of free education. I can tell you what free education is. Okay? I've lived long enough to see what free medical service is. I've lived long enough to, but what we are seeing in public hospitals is not free medical service. So I can tell you that the country has been decline. We have not moved forward at all. We've been in decline. We can even add numbers there. Okay, for instance, our GDP, it's very simple, not to complicate things. In today's terms, our GDP in 1964 is equivalent today to $2,335. But what is our GDP today? Our GDP is less than 1,500. Okay? Now, how can somebody say the country is okay when our economy is growing at less than 6% and yet our population is growing at almost 4%? How can you say we are okay when at independence we had zero external debt and today our debt is nearly 100% of our GDP? How can you say you're okay?
You're okay relative to the last election.
Well, that's not a...
Or relative to the last government. Maybe that's... And I want to agree with you by saying that sometimes it feels like a lot of people will always say whether you're okay or whether you're not based off what it was when they took over office. Well, if you go back into time, right?
Yeah.
And again, you're older than I am, so you will know this. But when Chiluba took over in 91, say, take 96 elections, wasn't he saying where the country is better? But what was the yardstick? It was when he took over in
yes.
from the previous government. You take the late Michael Sata, when he took over, he was saying, we're okay, country's okay. It was relative to where he picked up from MMD. And we can fast forward to today.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get, what I mean.
Yes, I get what you're saying.
It's very functional in terms of from a political election perspective.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that's why I avoid that.
Yeah.
I avoid that because the mess we are in cannot be attributed to one government.
Yeah.
Okay? All successive governments are responsible in one or the other. Okay? That is why I avoid singling this. But I'm looking at it generally to say, independence is the best reference point. Where are we at independence? Okay? Because here is a point. Some of the decisions that governments make may not be felt during the reign of that government. The implications will be felt during the reign of another government. Okay? So I prefer to say, okay, that's why I'm looking at a period of 60 years. And simply saying, this is where at independence, this is where we are today. I prefer to do that because whichever way, in fact, I have another way of saying it. The success of any government in this country is not dependent upon how much they have moved the country in the positive. But I think you look at it to say a successful government in Zambia is one that has done the least damage to the country. That's how you have to look at it. Okay? Because each country has done damage, each government has done damage to this country in one way or the other. So, but overall, we're in a bad shape. And even when you go out, because Zambia is not an island, you have to look at it to say, how are we doing in relation to other countries? Take Botswana, for example. Botswana was poorer than Zambia. Today, Botswana is better than Zambia. Zambia was better than China in 1964. Today, China is far ahead of Zambia. And yet, we had a small population, rich in resources. Even today, okay, we have resources. Now, somebody was telling me gold is being discovered literally everywhere in Zambia. But the point is, what are we doing about that? Okay? So, it is important for us to be able to accept that given everything we have, we're in a bad shape. That's very important. Now, the point is, if the majority of Zambians say we are okay, then there is no problem. Okay? Then there is nothing to fix. It means they're happy. So there is no need for renewal. Okay? But I can tell you now, honestly, we're not okay. We're not. Okay? So that is why that particular point is very important. Can we reach national consensus? If you believe that the country is not okay, then join us. Because that's what we're calling for.
Does it also begin from leaders as well? Leaders understanding or accepting that we're not okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Without feeling like there is blame being put on anyone's.
No.
Yeah.
No. In fact, it's not even a blame game. By the way, in fact, even us as ordinary citizens we should also be responsible for the mess we are in. Because remember, all these governments, starting with Kaunda and the rest, we elect them. Okay, every government that has gone into power has gone through the ballot, meaning that we have given the mandate. Okay, so which means whatever mess they created, we have a share in that. It is different if you have, say, for example, a military government that imposes itself on the people. That's different. But every successive government in the last 61 years has come through the ballot, meaning that their failure is also a reflect on us as voters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a line again in your statement where it says you talk about truth and responsibility, and you're asking people, are we willing to demand and accept the truth even when it's painful?
Yes.
Rather than settle for comforting lies and political slogans.
That's right.
That obviously ties into the first question.
Yes,
which
it
is
does.
understanding whether we are or not in a crisis.
That's right.
If you're willing to accept that I'll put more money in your pocket,
yes,
by face value, or if you're willing to accept that I can fix it at face value, and it is just a slogan without asking the question, how? Then obviously there is a question, there is a problem here.
Yeah. But that is the problem, because those are the slogans we're talking about. They want to tell us, and all those things, as you know, they've turned out to be false anyway, right? Now, the question is, one of the things I've learned is that somebody said, in politics you don't have to be truthful. Somebody came to me and said, you have to start talking like a politician. Then I said, what does that mean? No, you see, does it mean that I have to start telling lies? I said, yeah, but, and I said, no, I can't tell lies. I'd rather tell people the truth. And they said, well, if you are truthful, you won't win an election. Then I said, well, I'd rather tell the truth and lose an election than tell a lie and win an election. Okay? Now, that is a culture we have created where we have accepted lies. We don't interrogate them, But we have to be truthful, because the truth can only take you up to a certain point. Okay? Now, people should be able to understand. By the way, I'll give an example. When President Chiluba took over office in 91, he was very truthful. He said, countrymen and women, we are in trouble. the country is in a bad shape, we have no choice but to go through structural adjustment program imposed by the IMF. And we have to tighten our belts. Everybody went, oh, we are ready. And when it started biting, nobody went on the streets to demonstrate because the president was truthful. And that is why there was never a riot during the reign of President Chiluba on account of the economic hardships that were created, because he was truthful. And when people started complaining, he reminded, but guys, I told you that it was going to be hard. So we should be able to say the truth. Now, here's a point. If you tell me that, even at a personal level, if I said, for example, you said to me, the program is starting at 9. I was here at 9.
Yeah.
Right? I was truthful. You are truthful to me. Now, truth is very important because it enables us to plan accordingly. And even the government, if the government can say, guys, we promised you free education, but we have looked at the coffers. We cannot offer you free education. Maybe in the second year, when things stabilize, we can look at free education. What will the people do? They'll accept that because the government is being truthful. And we have seen over the years, governments have told lies, and those lies have not gotten us anywhere. Now, when the people are told the truth, people are able to plan to say, okay, the next 2 years there is no free education. How do I manage in the next 2 years? Look at the situation we had with load shedding. We had contradictory statements and so forth. What was simply required was to be truthful to the people, to say, these challenges, this is what is happening. This is because government, remember, we're in the 21st century. Data is very important. Okay? Even the crisis of electricity that we have had was predictable. Okay? But government should have, those responsible should have come forward and told the people to say, guys, for the next 2-3 years, this is what we'll be going through. Okay? Brace yourselves. But we believe after a second year or so, things should be able to stabilize. But there was nothing like that. Now, boom, we now have electricity 24 hours. The question is, how did this come about? What is it which they have done now, which they couldn't do 2 years earlier? That is why truth to the people is very important. Here you are, you have invested so much money in generators, in inverters, in solar panels. Now you have electricity 24 hours. What are you going to do with that investment? Okay? That's why it is important for government to be truthful to its people. Now, if somebody knew that, well, load shedding will only be a problem in 1 year, maybe some of them would not have made the kind of investment they have made. Okay? That is why truth is very important. And I mean, somebody else came to me and said, I was explaining this issue to say, we have a challenge in the country in the sense that our economy is growing it's not growing that fast, below 5-6%. But our population is growing very fast. Somebody came to me and said, no, you can't talk about the population. I said, why? Because people won't like it. That is a vote-losing discussion. And I said, no, but it's the reality. It's the reality. At 4%, the question is, are you going to manage the two? Okay, are you going to manage? So you have an income that is fixed, but in the meantime, the number of mouths to be fed is increasing. How are you going to manage that? Now, this is an open discussion that should be had as a country, and that can only be, now, that's painful truth. Now, we should be prepared. A politician or anybody in leadership should not be scared to say, if I say the truth, I'll lose votes. No, it should actually be commended for that. Okay? But now, what happens, because people believe, I mean, you've seen the campaign that goes on, the amount of lies told, I'm an MP, I'll bring development to your constituency. Clearly, nobody even, that person does not even understand that the MP has no, an MP is simply a representative of the people at a national level. It has nothing to do with the development of a constituency. Those are the lies we're talking about. Okay? So, but MPs and these other elected officials believe that telling lies is the right thing to do.
But that's because we've normalized it.
We have
and the people don't know any better, I guess, or the electorate don't know any better. There was somebody in here last week, on Tuesday actually, who he said it in passing, but it's something that I hear people say this, that I might get in trouble for saying it as well, but I'll say it anyway.
Yes.
But they were saying that, listen, sometimes it feels like we ask leaders to have certain qualifications. Now,
yes.
I'm going to be very polite about it. We ask leaders to have qualifications and certain qualifications, but we don't ask the same from their electorate. We're asking our electorate, regardless of whether you're educated or not, to be able to decide on who you put into these high offices. That's a misnomer.
Yeah, it is a problem. I mean, it's part of the challenges that we have, and unfortunately, that is the nature of our democratic system, right? If you go back, it's a real challenge. If you go back in the colonial days before 1964, we didn't have universal suffrage where everybody had to vote.
Yeah.
We had what we call a qualitative whereby the right to vote was not open to anyone, meaning the colonial government believed that a vote is such a weighty issue. It can only be given to a person that is responsible. Now, how do they determine responsibility? You needed to have a certain income or a certain property. So it was qualitative, not quantitative. Now, the reason was that anybody with property has some level of understanding. Now, and even women were not allowed to vote. So what happens is that my wife would actually be able to vote based on my qualifications. But independence has come, and we said everybody above the age of 18 has the right to vote. Now, this is very sad. And I see these things where, because these are all breaches of the law. I mean, people actually buy the electorates.
Yeah.
They give them mini-meal. Technically, that's an insult. Okay? You shouldn't. You shouldn't do that. Other than the fact that this is breach of the electoral laws, okay, is simply bad. You don't have to pay anybody to vote for you. Okay? In the process, our elections are bought. Now, that should not be the case. Those of us who know better should be able to educate the electorate that your vote is not for sale. Okay? But again, you have a challenge. You had a problem with Bill 7, where it is believed some people cashed in. Anyway, we don't know that. But the point is, we shouldn't do that. Those that know, this is part of the civic education. Your vote is not for sale. Okay, and SATA had an antidote to that. You say, well, if they give you something, still get it, but know what you do in the booth. But if you are a responsible leader, don't buy your vote, because it doesn't make sense. When you are offering yourself an elective office, say as a mayor or as a councillor or as an MP, as president, you are basically saying, you people of Zambia, I'm going to be your servant. Now, if I'm going to be your servant, why should I pay you so that I can save you? If anything is supposed to be the other way around, the people should be able to finance your campaign, because you're going to work for them when you get elected. But these are the issues we should be talking about. They are inconvenient but necessary to talk about.
It's an accountability issue.
It is, yes.
We have to hold all of us
accountable,
not
yes.
just politicians,
No.
but ourselves as well. Because
Exactly.
we're responsible for some of this as well.
Yes, we are. That's how messed up our system is. And that's why we are saying there has to be renewal. We have to vacate certain practices that we have embraced. They are not healthy, but in any case, why would you, if they were good, our country should be somewhere else. But it's not. And for that reason, why do we have to embrace and continue with certain practices that are completely detrimental to our well-being and the well-being of our democracy?
Do you ever see, again, this is all about in the spirit of renewal, do you ever see a situation, a point where we will get to where the leaders who put themselves forward, and I guess maybe it starts with you, but the leaders who put themselves forward are not doing it for their own personal gains? This goes back to 1964, where a lot of leaders who were there in 1964 went about making themselves rich. but they put country first.
That's right.
Do you think we'll ever get to that point?
We ought to. We ought to. We have no choice.
But without these interrogations, without these questions, do you think that what you currently see on, whether it's on the ground, as people like to say, but what you currently see, does it paint a picture of, yes, I can see that we have leaders who aren't about their own pockets? Yeah.
Here's a problem. It's a two-pronged issue. First of all, we have to get there, right? Because the converse, we have already experienced that. Now, there are two things. First, I grew up in an era where there's always a high sense of self-evaluation. Now, there are two things. To address that particular issue, there are two things. There's a responsibility on the part of the person offering himself for election, and there's also a responsibility on the part of the electorate. Before you do offer yourself for public office, you have to evaluate yourself. What is it? I want to stand as a councillor. What do I know about being a councillor? Right? We don't do that, but we have to start doing that. When you say, I want to be a mayor, what do you know about local government? Okay? These are the critical issues. Have you even read the Local Government Act? Have you even read the Constitution to understand the structure of our local government? We don't do that. Okay? So that is something that we as a people should be able to do. Secondly, there is another, even when you answer that, you say, what do I know? Then the next question will be, what is it that I've done in my life that has prepared me for the life of an MP? Okay? If you answer both questions in the negative, then you're not suitable. So you'll be doing yourself a favor, and you also be doing the electorate a favor. But when a person still goes ahead and offers himself, the job now goes to the electorate to be able to say, wait a minute, who is this guy? What is it that he has done in his life that qualifies him to be a councillor, a mayor, or even an MP? I mean, look at it this way. In our own lives, do we just pick people from the street to say, you, come and become my garden boy? We don't do that. In fact, we do it mostly by reference. We even say, where have you worked? Where do you stay? Okay? And who was your last employer? Right? We do that. And sometimes we'd even go to the extent of phoning the last employer. I understand this person worked for you. Yes. Why did he leave? What are we doing? We want to make sure that we employ the right person. Why don't we do that to our MPs? Okay? We don't do that. That is something that we should be doing, especially in this election. We should be able to go just beyond going there to say, we should ask, who is this person who is offering himself? What has he done? What is it? First of all, as citizens, we have obligations to serve the country. Now, before he offered himself as a member of parliament, what is it that he has done for the country? Because remember, service. Yeah. You can't certainly be a person of service when you have never been offering any kind of public service for the rest of your life. Okay? So these are the things we should be interrogating. And this is why we're talking about renewal. We have to change the way we have been doing things. It has not been right. Okay? I mean, I'll tell you, even in my own case, I didn't just wake up one morning and say, this is what I want to do. No. People came to me. People came and said, why don't you consider this? Why don't you consider this? Then I said, wait a minute. Clearly people have seen something in me. Let me interrogate it further. Okay? And even then, I still have to, I'm not just flying into it blindly or arrogantly. No, I'm not. Okay? So these are the issues. We need to elevate our discussion to another level. Not just, I think it was Ichawama by-election, where I think one of the candidates was making promises about what? That he was going to recruit people, employ people, and
He was also washing clothes, but he ended up winning. So I mean, what do we know?
But and all those things, they're untruthful anyway. But they won't happen because the RMP is not in a position to do any of those things, right? But this is something that we need to interrogate. But the reason why that is so is those who know better stay away. Okay?
But there's a reason they stay away. There's a reason why. I mean, we started off the program. You started off the program by saying how a lot of educated people stay away. There's a reason why they stay away.
Yes, but we can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. Then if you decide to stay away, then don't complain. Yeah, then you have to keep quiet. Because when you stay away, and this is why I'm saying, I'm not a messiah. I'm not a messiah. That's why I'm asking for the support of at least 1 million signatures. We need to see that 1 million signatures to say, I'm not going to do it alone. I am not. I've done my sacrifice. And I'm asking other Zambians to make the sacrifice. Nobody will fix, the truth of the matter, my brother, is this. Nobody will fix Zambia. There's nobody who come from somewhere to fix Zambia. Zambia can only be fixed by Zambians, you and I. We need to make our respective sacrifices, okay? But it's either we do something about it or we just keep quiet and accept the status quo, okay? As opposed to lying to ourselves that we can transform this country. Sacrifices will be required. No country on earth has ever been transformed without sacrifices. None. Okay? And there's nothing special about Zambia to believe that we can develop or transform ourselves without any sacrifices. There's nothing.
One last question just before I pick up some phone calls. Questions 7 and 8 of your call to national reflection are very similar. One touches on the rule of law and constitution. The other one touches on equality before the law.
Mm-hmm.
You ask, are we willing to know, defend, and live by our constitution?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, first of all, we need to know what the constitution is.
Yes.
We need to understand that we have a responsibility to defend it. We have to understand the way that you can go about amending a constitution. There are a lot of things that we need to be able, that citizens need to know,
yes,
before they can even say, I am willing to defend,
yes,
the constitution. I am willing to understand what the rule of law is.
Yes.
I am willing to accept that everybody is equal, regardless of who you are before the law.
Yeah, we have to make an effort. If you look at Article 43, it requires us to have a reasonable understanding of the Constitution. That is critical because that is the foundation of the country. Now, how can you say I am a Zambian and you have never read your Constitution? It's like saying I'm a Christian but I don't read the Bible. You can't. Okay? So the Constitution is the foundation of who we are as a people. And I think some people have even gotten irritated by me talking about the Constitution. Unfortunately, we can't avoid it. We have to talk about it. Now, why the Constitution is important? Because it tells us how we should organize ourselves and how we should govern ourselves. It is critical. It is critical. And you saw the saga with Bill 7. And I don't think at all those actors, starting from right from the top to the bottom, even had any regard for the Constitution. They didn't. And that is the problem. Now, if we truly understood the Constitution, we would not have had Bill 7. Okay, here we are now. One of the scary things that people don't understand is, if as a country you don't respect your own Constitution, which foreign investor will come to your country? None. The only foreign investors you'll be able to attract are those people coming to extract our raw materials. And if you believe that you can have factories in Zambia producing, involved in manufacturing of certain products, forget it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We've been singing this song for the last 30 years. What manufacturing do we have? None. Okay? Any serious investor is looking for stability, is looking for the existence of rule of law. But if you don't have that, forget it. Nobody will come to the country. Nobody. And there's data to prove that over the last 30 years, ever since we returned to multi-party democracy. Okay? So it is important because rule of law makes everything predictable. Okay? You can do something, you know what your rights are. Okay? Now, what we have now is that the law is sometimes implemented selectively. Now, that is not good. And most importantly, if you disrespect the Constitution, what law are you going to respect? Okay, so these are some of the things that are critical, these 10 points. And that's why I was saying they are necessary for us to renew the country, that we have to stick to the Constitution, we have to respect the Constitution. Now, another point that, for example, I know we have skipped some of these issues. We talked about the issue to do with choosing leaders. And that's exactly the same thing. You need to know you're voting for. Okay? What happens in this case? We just pick. You go there. I believe in this party. So president, you vote for that party. MP for that party. Councillor for that party. Mayor for that party. That's not the way the system is designed to work. You are supposed to know all the presidential candidates and choose the best person you believe can deliver. And then, remember, these candidates are simply sponsored by the political party. You are not voting for the party, you are voting for the individual, sponsored by that party. So now, we have to do a lot of civic education to understand how our system is supposed to operate. And unfortunately, we have no choice but to address these issues. These issues are critical, and we have to depart from, because we have seen the consequences of doing things the way we have done them in the last 60 years. That hasn't taken us anywhere. So we can't go on doing the same thing. If we continue on the same trajectory, we are looking at wasting another 60 years. And by the time, anyway, fortunately for me, by that time I'll be long gone.
Here's a first question here from one of our listeners. This is from Mumba. Earlier, Mr. Sangwa mentioned that governments have caused harm to the country. Can he highlight some mistakes made by current and previous governments that still or will affect us negatively, and how can they be reversed?
Current
and previous governments that still or will affect us negatively, and how they can be reversed if possible.
Yeah, I mean, there are many. There are many. I mean, look at the issue of debt, right? Let me just confine myself to debt. In 1964, we got a country, zero debt. Now, what happened? By the time of 1991, now Zambia, I mean, these are the consequences which you have to look at. You can research on this. These things are well documented. In 1964, Zambia was one of the third richest country in Africa. They had the healthiest GDP, zero debt. Now, 21 years later, 27 years later, Zambia was sitting on an external debt of well over $7 billion. Okay? Now, by that time, it was classified as the least developed and worst indebted country in the world in 27 years. Now, there's a long history. Now, the consequence of that, some partly of bad policies and partly some of the external factors which the country did not gear itself to prevent. What happened? We went through now another period of serious structural adjustment program. That $7 billion debt was never repaid. It was never repaid. It was instead cancelled. It was forgiven. By 2008, Zambia was literally debt-free. Okay, I think our debt was less than $1 billion. Then comes PF. Okay. Now, PF, in 10 years that they were in power, I mean, I was trying to avoid talking about specific political parties, but see, in response to this, like I've said, whatever mess we have, all governments are collectively responsible, and us as a people as well. But in response to this question, indulge me, and all those who are PF members, please indulge me as I answer this question. But at the end of the day, PF had direct debt of well in excess of $12 billion. Again, there is nothing wrong in borrowing, and that is one of the things that I've mentioned, that as a country we should learn to borrow within our limits. What happened? We borrowed and defaulted. Now, that debt has crippled the country. Okay? These are the consequences that governments have done. Now, that is just external debt. Now, we have an internal debt, which is far more crippling than the external debt, which is basically government stealing from its own people when you're talking about internal debt. Now, that internal debt stifles the market because there is no money to go around, and economies are grown when money is changing hands. Those are some of the examples that we're looking at mistakes. Now, again, there is nothing wrong in borrowing, but you have to borrow responsibly within your capacity. And we're now suffering the consequences of that debt. Right now, if you check the current budget, the amount of money allocated to service the external debt is more than what has been allocated for health and education combined. Now, how are you going to grow your economy? If a large portion of your debt is going towards debt service, a large component of your budget is going through debt service. Okay, so really, and a certain portion has to be given by contributed by other people. We cannot fund our own budget completely and wholly. These are the consequences of the policies, decisions made by previous governments. And that is why I'm saying some decisions may be made today, but the consequences will be felt later on. The current government has made its own mistakes. Okay, for example, the issue, there are plenty of things that we can talk about. But the point that is there is that these mistakes are cumulative, and that's what has brought us here. And that's why we're saying we can't go on. We have to find a way to change the way. To have respect for rule of law, there has to be equality before the law. We have to learn to live within our means as a country and as a people. And the other point that we have also talked about amongst the 10 points is that we must have our democracy funded by ourselves. Okay? Now, what has happened is this, and that is very important because it prevents a situation whereby when people are elected are captured. You know there's no free lunch. Anybody who gives you money towards your political party, they're not doing so out of generosity. For them, it's an investment. Now, we as a people, as Zambians, we have to take a position whereby we fund our own democracy. For example, in other countries, it's a serious criminal offense to receive funding from outside to fund your election. Now, why? Because you don't want your politicians controlled by external factors or captured by business interest. Okay, because technically when you get money from outside, they have basically bought the election for you. If you are president, they have bought the presidency for you. If you are an MP, they've bought that particular position for you. And therefore, you owe it to them. You have to find a way to repay. So in the process, you are not likely to be of service to the people that elected you. You'll be of service to the people that funded your election. Now, these are the 10 points that we are saying. Are Zambians prepared to accept these terms? And if they are, then I'm saying I'm available to serve. But without observing these 10 things, these 10 questions, answering them in the affirmative, we are wasting time. It doesn't matter what kind of policies you're going to formulate, but as long as we don't address these 10 things, these policies will not go anywhere. We won't go anywhere.
If you agree or you don't agree with Mr. John Sangwa, feel free to call us 226-841-0978-895-895. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, what's your name?
Lukulu Voice.
Okay, go ahead, Lukulu Voice. Hello? Okay, I think we've lost Lukulu Voice. 226-841-0978-895-895 if you would like to get in touch with us this morning. Hello, good morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
It's Lukulu Voice here speaking.
Yes, go ahead, Lukulu Voice.
Yeah, I'm saying, how are you, Mr. John Sangwa?
Very well, sir.
Thank you very much. I disagree with you. There's certain points where we want to be saying you have to be truthful when you want to be tough.
Hello? Hello? Okay, I think we've lost him again. All right, 226-841, 0978-895-895. Those are the numbers you can use if you want to get in touch with us. Hello, good morning. Okay, lost you there. 226-841, 0978-895-895. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Hello?
Hello, good morning. How are
Good
you?
morning, how are you? What's your name?
I'm Simus Kanim calling from Chingola.
Okay, go ahead from Chingola, go ahead.
Mr. Sangwa, good morning.
Yes, sir. Morning.
Morning. You said this is not a free education. Suppose you become a president this year. Are you going to remove this free education or will be paying? 2, what was bad in this Bill 7? Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. 226-841, 0978-895-895. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Roche.
Good morning. What's your name, sir?
Felix Mukoka calling from Matera.
Felix. Go ahead, Felix.
State Council, Sangwa. Good morning, and how are you?
I'm very well.
Okay. State Council, you said that your party is not yet launched. You need about 1,000 signatures from people. So, in short, what are you trying to do with the launching of your party? And I've read that these signatures that you want, everyone who is going to sign these signatures, they have to contribute 100 kwacha towards the formation of your party. Is it one way of raising funding your party? And as you are aware, we have just remained with 7 months before the 2026 presidential general elections, because we are now hesitating to form your party. I don't know how you are going to put the structures on the ground. So do you have any intentions of joining any alliance or any political party to work with? Thank you so much.
Okay. Do you want to actually respond to that, to those two? Because I know that one is a bit loaded and it might come up again later on. So maybe you can respond to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, two things. There is a difference between asking for the 1 million and the funding. Okay. First, the 1 million is simply to say, do we have people that support these ideas? Okay, because that's what we would like to commit ourselves to, and that is renewal. And like I said, I'm not that arrogant to believe that the ideas I have are acceptable. But if people accept the proof that is required, it's a threshold, it's the minimum that is required in order to move forward. And if people accept that, then we move into a political party. I've heard that people have been saying that, well, you only have 7 months. We do believe that that is more than enough time to be able to morph into a political party and be able to, if the people desire that we take part in the coming election, we will. Because I do believe that if people are determined to do anything, they have the capacity to do it. It is largely dependent upon what people want to achieve at the end of the day. That is one. Number two, funding is very important because but it's not a levy, it's a contribution. If you believe in what the movement stands for once it moves into a political party, like right now we're not collecting any money from anyone, and whatever funding that is being utilized right now, this is coming from donations by people believing the movement. I'll tell you, for example, yesterday we had a workshop where certain people were recruited from about 5 provinces. And this particular workshop was organized by people that believe in the movement. That is their contribution towards this exercise. And that is what we like to encourage. It's not for me to produce money to give to you. It is citizens contributing towards the development, towards the good of the country. That is what we would like to emphasize. It is about making sacrifices. Now, when it comes to that contribution, we simply said that when we morph into a political party, we will not get any foreign funding. We will not get funding from businesses. We would like Zambians, if they believe in us, to be able to fund that. And I gave an example to say, let's assume, just hypothetically, we have 1 million Zambians. They don't need to be the ones that have signed. For example, we have had people who are saying, you know what, I'm not interested in signing, but when you form me a political party, I'll give you the money. There are people like that. Now, if you have Zambians that can come forward, just as an example, you get 1 million people, and each one of them, they give you, say, 100 kwacha. That's 100 million. Now, the reason for this is to make Zambians believe that they own the political party. Okay? Now, when you own the political party, then you, the people, can dictate what that political party should do. But when the source of funding for a political party is not known, that political party will never be controlled by the citizens. It will be controlled by the funders. But if the people themselves are the funders, then they can control that political party. That is the rationale behind it. And that's why we're talking about renewal. We can't continue doing the same thing. Now, if you want, and we're talking about sacrifice, every Zambian can sacrifice 100 kwacha, 50 kwacha, 20 kwacha towards that cause. The rationale is to make Zambians believe that they have a sense of ownership in that political party. And if the leadership of that political party misbehaves, the citizens can say, we're throwing you out. But if I've funded the party completely alone, on my own, how can you throw me out? You can't. And I'm the one to throw you out. So we have to learn from the mistakes we have made in the past and be able to do things differently. Okay? Now, there was another question to say, what was wrong with Bill 7? Everything is wrong with Bill 7. Okay? I've argued this several times. I think let me still repeat it. Here's a problem. You have doubled the House, the size of the National Assembly. Okay? You have literally doubled it. You have increased, I think, by about 100 or so. But we are broke as a country. Now, where we are, we should not be creating new expenses. We should be cutting costs. Now, those nearly 100 members of parliament you have created, they need to be funded. Now, they're even talking about expanding the size of the National Assembly. The question is, is that a priority in this country? The answer is no, it's not. Those are the things that I've been talking about, which are wrong with the amendment of Bill 7. Now, other than that, there are several other provisions that I do not agree with, other than that to do with the cost of the exercise, which cannot be justified. Okay? There is another point which, as a matter of principle, I simply disagree with. Every president has tried to cook the Constitution just before the election. President Chiluba did it in 1996. Okay? Then President Lungu tried to do it through Bill 10. Okay? Then we now have the current government doing the same thing. You don't do that. You see, you have to respect the Constitution. It is the foundation of who we are. It's not something that you discover that maybe political parties' constitution are respected more than the national constitution. In fact, you might even discover that there have been fewer amendments to party constitution compared to the national constitution. Now, that you cannot do. And that is where the problem, what it means is that you remove the sacredness of the Constitution, okay? You reduce the gravity of the Constitution as a foundation of the country, okay? So that is what I'm opposed to. And I would love to believe that any of those promises, that there are reasons that have been given as reason for passing Bill 7, all those things could easily be achieved under the arrangements as it stood before amendment. And most of those are largely a question of policy. You could have passed an act of parliament to implement all those things. And I don't believe that they required amendment of the Constitution.
Okay. 26840978895895. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Morning. What's your name?
Yeah, Happy New Year. You are talking to Comrade Morgan within Lusaka, Mr. Chironda. Yeah. Good morning, the guest.
Morning, sir.
I'm only taking 3 points which I heard from you. One is that why the former president being prosecuted. That's what you have said according to the Constitution. The Constitution said a former president shall keep properly according to the Constitution, and the security shall be there. And having the office of the former president shall be there continuously. Now, the problem which we have in this country, the hatred. You know, one thing, if you are Sangwa president, Sangwa president, Pantu, Pangira Kamulandu, after Panga Kamulandu, Amtoa Kukoti. Umbia wina, na opposition, don't you know, we are all one Zambia, one nation. Let us keep each other. And when we keep each other, peace shall continue. That's the first issue, the point number one. Secondary issue, the Bari will fix it. He's tried to fix it, yes. And you see that he paid the Congolese in that. He paid and he started having now the fruits. I think Zambian will start seeing the fruits right now. Nadola na Ibuela. But I hear you saying there is no country outside which can improve Zambia on ourselves. You remember in Kaunda, mining, the ZCCM we are getting 51%, 49% foreigners. Because us as a Zambian, we have no equipment to dig copper. We have copper, yes, but do you have capacity to dig your own copper? We brought some other countries who are expert in mining, which we are getting 49%. Us we are getting 51%. And these are good machinery and do our work. And also tax. So this is the point what I'm saying. So don't cheat yourself that you can dig our copper ourselves. Don't have machinery. Go deep down and our workers are going. Right now we're speaking. We have got workers deep down there. Safety supposed to be there, everything. Okay. But those rights they have. So you cannot capacity.
Morgan, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Morgan. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, sir. What's your name?
I'm sure you're going to get me now.
Is that Lukulu voice? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. How are you, Mr. Sangwa?
Very well, sir.
Thank you very much. You are coming to the public. You are coming to the public office according to what you are trying to do. You must come with a clean hand. When you ask questions, you need to answer. I asked you twice the question you have been dodging it. I want you to answer. I hear that the Development Bank of Zambia is now on liquidation. And you are also one of the people that owes that bank. If that's true, be clear. Then coming to the issue of governance system, when 2021, what do you expect the UPN could do if you had a lot of people unemployed in this country, living at home? We had a lot of our children not going to school. The same fee you see that for you is not the free education. They were failing to pay. They were just home doing that. Can you see that population just being home? What is that population? What will come tomorrow? It will be something else in the country. So the UPN came in and made sure that there's a free education. There's no school fee. There's not even examination fee. Okay? And there's also even a school feeding program added. But these other government, they were saying there's no money. So, what are you trying to make? You can't see that these people, UPN have done a lot of things within 4 years. They must congratulate it. So we needed the proper checks and balances from you opposition, not what you are doing. Here, you are just criticizing, no solution. Because how do you look at Baka India? How many civil services have been employed in this country? Almost close to 100,000 within 4 years. Can you do that? Who has done that before? Huh? Then mines that were smiling in court, they are back to the site. There are production there. Today, we are manufacturing fertilizer in this country. Capital fertilizer there. And the other investment coming is because of the good policies of the UPND and the good environment. Chawama, we had the election here. Have you heard that someone is hurt or killed? The environment that was brought by the UPND. So UPND is for good environment, good development that the country needs. So we cannot change such a government. No, we need to support it more so that we are going to benefit more of the country for the years that we have been left behind.
Okay.
Get restructured 94%.
Local
All those issues can talk and talk.
Local voice.
So
Local
you can
voice.
be within 4 years.
Local
you have
voice.
done- so you-
Thank you very much. All right, he's giving us the greatest hits. Do you want to? I think he says that he's been asking you this question that you don't seem to want to answer it. Let's begin there then. The Development Bank.
Let me put it this way. It is clearly. He doesn't see anything wrong with what the current government is sees everything. I mean, this is the beauty of a democracy. I've given my view, and he's entitled to his opinion. And I think disagreeing in a democracy is healthy. And one of the things that I've come to discuss before in relation to this program is my thoughts about what should be done about the country in terms of renewal. I'm selling ideas, and people are perfectly at liberty to disagree, and others are perfectly at liberty to agree with me. And that's the nature of a democratic system of government. Okay, fine, but I don't have the right to impose my views on you. He doesn't have the right to impose his views on me, and I have no right to impose my views on him. At the end of the day, we may have to agree to disagree. So he sees nothing wrong, everything is perfect, which is his prerogative. And I believe that Zambia could do better than we have. And that is why, in our discussion, I avoided attributing Zambia's decline to a particular government. I've said, listen, when we look at it totally, all governments have failed the country in one or the other, and that Zambia should not be where it is. That is the point I was trying to make. There's this issue to do with the Development Bank of Zambia, which keeps coming up. That issue is in court. Okay, it's not something that I'm at liberty to discuss, because I'll be arguing a matter that is in court. You know very well. Yeah. So to put the answer, I can go ahead and talk about it, but the matter is in court. For that reason, we are officers of the law, and we have to respect that. We don't discuss matters that are in court. We don't discuss them publicly.
Can I ask you to
Sure.
just elucidate the point clearly for him when you said, and others, when you said you lived in a time when there was free education, and
Yes.
and what you see today is not necessarily,
Okay.
you wouldn't necessarily consider it as free education.
No.
That might have hit a nerve.
Let me
hit a nerve
explain
for
to
some
you.
people. So
Yeah.
maybe explain what the difference is.
The difference is very simple. When we had proper free education, we shared desk with children of ministers. Okay? Now, you just have to do an assessment. How many of the ministers and top civil servants have their children in government schools? Okay, it's basically like selling cocaine. You're selling cocaine to your friends' children, but you yourself, you don't consume that cocaine. I know the value of free education. I'm a product of free education, and I can tell you, for example, look at it this way: what was the ratio? I was trying to avoid this particular subject. When we had free education, in grade 7, we were 35 in a class. In grade 7, we're 35 in a class. Okay. Now, how many children do we have in our classes? So it's not just a question of saying there's free education, but what is the quality of the students that we are producing? Those are the issues that we should be talking about. I was at the university for 20 years. And the reason there's a reason why I left. One of the reasons I left was a complete decline in the quality of students we are getting. Our education system requires a complete overhaul. Okay? And by the way, but that starts right from primary school up to university. None of the public institutions, for example, I don't know whether you've ever looked at the ranking of University of Zambia globally. Okay? It's very poor. Very poor. Now, this is the decline of everything that we have seen in this environment. In my time, when we're talking about is, for example, we had no private schools. Okay? We had no private schools. Okay? Now, here we are. So here's a problem. Let me say it this way. Somebody said to me, that ordinarily, this is what I believe in the sense that, things like education should never be privatized. That should be the responsibility of government. Education should never be a business. The moment it becomes a business, you destroy it. And that's exactly what has happened. Okay? When we started, government funded this education from grade 1 up to university. That was funded by government. That is no longer the case. And as a result, everything has basically suffered greatly. And most of the students we are producing, I'm an employer. I employ lawyers, and I know the quality of the students we are producing. So these are the challenges that we're talking about, and that is why we are saying the country needs renewal. Okay? There is another point I think that came up from one of the callers. I didn't pick it up completely. We're talking about national unity. I think this is very, very important. And one of the 10 points we talked about is, are we prepared to stand together, irrespective of our tribes, irrespective of our origin? Because that is key to the development of the country. You cannot develop a country that is not united. Okay? So we have to accept each other, irrespective of where we're coming from. Now, obviously, some discussions which were not part of the mainstream discussion today are part of the mainstream. Now, a lot of people, I know of cases, for example, people lost their jobs in government and parastate institutions because they come from a certain region. There are cases that I've handled. Now, that should never happen. We are all one as a people. What we have to embrace is one Zambia, one nation. The only determinant whether you have a job or not should be your qualifications, not your tribe, not your region, nothing whatsoever. Now, these are critical for renewal. And I've listened to some of the questions that have come, and the point that we are saying is that we have these 10 points. We believe they are key for the renewal of the country, and others are perfectly at liberty to agree or disagree with that. And I'm selling a message, okay? And I'm saying this is key for our renewal. And we have done that. We have changed governments in the last, 36 years. We are no better. Overall, there is no improvement. There is no improvement. We still, can you imagine? We in 91, we were indebted we had a debt of 7 billion. 35 years later, we're now sitting on a debt of well in excess of $15 billion. So how can you say that there's been progress in the last 30 years? There hasn't been any. Okay, now the question is, we need to understand how did we end up there and how do we do things differently? Okay, Zambia is behaving like a junkie for debt. We have a $7 billion debt, it is forgiven, we go and acquire more debt in the process. Now we are now struggling to repay that debt. Now, these are issues that we should be able to interrogate seriously. How do we find ourselves in this situation? Okay? Now, as long as the country remains reeling from this kind of challenges, we have no future. We have no future. Okay? And that is why it is important to have open discussion based on these issues.
There's somebody who's asking on Facebook, and by the way, there's a conversation with replies going on his particular question. So
yes,
I think usually you're the best person to answer it rather than having other people answer on your behalf.
Yes.
This person says, you speak eloquently about corruption, but what's your position on the bishop who was summoned by the DEC? I stand to be corrected, but I thought I saw you expressing solidarity with him, which seems contradictory to the expectation of zero tolerance to corruption from our leaders.
Well, first of all,
like I said, I'd rather you answered it rather than having other people answer on your behalf.
Yeah. You know, I would be very hesitant to comment that, because that is a matter which is a subject of potential prosecution or litigation in court. But I think, let me put it this way. There is always, we have a rule of law which says that there is a presumption of innocence. And as we stand, whatever has been there is simply allegations against the Archbishop. And I can also clarify the fact that, yes, I was present in that respect, but I still believe that every person has to be treated to be innocent. And I think that is very important. That does not change my position on corruption. And I've argued to say, and this is where I differ, somebody was saying, what is wrong with the current government in terms of addressing corruption. And my point is that one of the first things that this government should have done in relation to corruption should have changed the law on corruption. I do believe that when somebody is found guilty of corruption, I think the sentence should be life imprisonment and also recovery of everything that has been stolen, whatever was procured through that particular process. Research has proven that most people engage in corruption, they are prepared to go to jail, but are not prepared to surrender whatever they took, because they know if you get you steal $10 million, you stash it away. You go there, you get 4 years imprisonment. You know very well, say, yeah, 4 years it is commuted, 1.5 years, I'll spend 2.5 years in jail and come out, my $10 million is still there. But my view is that there should be life imprisonment, okay? And that money that you have stolen should also be forfeited to the state. I think that would be the best deterrent that we can have in fighting corruption. Okay. That is my response in relation to the issue of corruption.
All right. Can I ask you this, because again, this is the people responding in here. So was it solidarity or lawyer? Again, you're not going to get it. I don't think you're going to get into too much trouble.
Both. Actually. Okay. Both. Yes. Okay. Right. First, I'm a Catholic. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And two, when this case started, I was already a lawyer for the. Yeah, I was a lawyer. I handled this whole saga right from the beginning. Okay. I dealt with the DEC officers and so forth, and it was only appropriate that I conclude the matter.
All right. This is from Justin, again on our WhatsApp line now. Looking at the state of politics now, the light and purity that you have at the moment cannot overshadow the current darkness. Why don't you join the opposition alliance to help fight the current government, rather than the movement of national renewal?
Well, I'm trying to create an alliance with 1 million Zambians. That is the path I've chosen. Okay? That is what we are working towards. And I'm already trying to work on that, except that I've just chosen a different path. And that is what I think is appropriate in the circumstances.
Okay. Walia from Dola says, I don't think Zambian voters should be part of the blame for the failure of successful governments, because they vote based on promises and they don't have the powers to recall until after 5 years.
Well, yeah, but the point that I made is a very good, it's an important question, very good question. But the point is that, do we know the people that we vote for? Okay? That is the exercise that we voters should be able to interrogate. When you look at, for example, our system is tiered. When you're looking at the smallest unit you can find is a ward, right? Now, the people in that ward should be responsible when voting for a councillor. They should know who the person they're voting for. Now, if you vote for a councillor whom you know very well that understands zero about local government, whose fault is that? It's your fault as voters. Okay? Now, we do to public office what we don't do in our own personal lives. We don't just pick up people from nowhere and then say, come and work for us. No. We interrogate them. We ask for CVs. Why don't we do the same to our elected officials? Okay? The fact that they have failed, it is partly our fault and partly their fault. We have to take some measure of blame as citizens.
Okay. 22684 and 0978-895-895. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Proud.
Honorable Sangwa.
Yes, sir.
First of all, you have missed a chance. Shawama, it was good for you to test your movement. And we wanted to surrender to President Haga in the Israel. Has allowed the election to go without him going in Shawama. Benekalava, Benemem, Benelubida, they have thought they have an idea. Some of them were coming with zero. And we are not ashamed of losing Shawama because it was a strong one for PF. Now it is a sign for those opposition rules is coming for 26. Because 32,000 we can only take Chilanga. To replace maybe 5 to 6 words, which means President Adande has taken a day.
Okay. Proud, thank you very much. There's no question in there, but it is what it is. Hello, good morning.
That's the issue you're talking about.
Yes.
Earlier.
I hope and trust you can get me loud and clear.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
I
am Miji, calling from
Ndege Township here in Ndola.
Okay, go ahead.
Allow me to continue with my contribution. First and foremost, let me thank the FTD for scooping the Chawama by-election. That is how it's supposed to be in a healthy democracy like ours. Some ruling party will win others will be taken by the opposition. That is very healthy. For the ruling party, they should not be pointing fingers at each other. Let them just move on and prepare for the big one, which is coming, and forget about it, Chawama. Having said that, Luchi, I just want Mr. John Sangwa to confirm here on the Phoenix today if our elections can be rigged. I'm saying this because there was one indication that the Chawama by-election will be rigged, but the ruling party has failed to scope that seat. What is your comment on that one? Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so he's asking whether he's talking about rigging. Is it possible to rig an election? Because people obviously, depending on where a by-election is, people always say that it's going to be rigged. But in the case of Chawama, opposition ended up winning, even though people were saying it's going to be rigged.
This is a subject of a far more detailed. We need more time, but what you have is largely electoral malpractices, okay, and the election is tempered with not so much on the election day. A lot of work is done before that. For example, you would have a situation where people are paid money to vote in a certain way. That in itself is a form of malpractice. I mean, it depends upon one looks at as rigging the election. But if you're talking about voter tampering, that's another issue altogether. From my own experience, our elections are fairly transparent, especially when there is that requirement of, is it form, or is it G12 or whatever form, which is completed. I think that is very helpful, but I think what really, I'm not an election expert, so I wouldn't competently answer that. But what I would comment on is the fact that technically there should be no money being paid to voters to go and vote in one or the other. That should never happen. Okay, that is what should be discouraged at all costs. Let the voters vote their conscience, not because they've been induced by money or whatever promises or benefits.
Okay. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Lawrence calling from Dollar.
Okay, go ahead, Lawrence.
Good morning, Excellency.
Yes, morning, sir.
Thank you. Let me talk about the hypocrisy of the UPND. When I talk of Chawama by-election, some few days ago they were boasting themselves, including Proud, who is from calling you to say, Chawama, we have taken it. But today they are commending themselves to say because of peaceful environment, that's why FDD has managed to scoop the Chawama by-election. And the hypocrisy of the UPND, they don't admit when something comes on their way, especially something which is out of their understanding or that out of their favor. What happened to Malawi prior to 2021 general elections? They were saying when they were in opposition, now it's Zambia. Okay, change is coming to Zambia. Now, recently, when there was a change of government, when the previous regime was removed from power, they were saying Zambia cannot be compared to Malawi. Malawi is Malawi, Zambia is Zambia. Please, IPND, stop this hypocrisy. Just admit that you have lost popularity on the ground. We are behind you, Council Sangwa. Please, just merge with other political parties. See what happened to Chawama. Chawama, because of splitting of votes, they have even managed to get 6,000. They are just supposed to be hammered so that they know exactly that.
Okay, Lawrence.
Thank you.
Lawrence, thank you very much, Lawrence.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to respond to?
No, I mean it's something that we have to.
Okay. Here is an actual question that I think you can respond to from John. John says, in terms of the movement, are you only focusing on the 2026 elections, or are you going to go beyond 2026 in case you don't make it at 1 million mark?
Well, I think a lot of those decisions will be made. We are quite confident that we'll be able to reach that 1 million. We've done everything possible. And what had initially happened was that we had set a target of 31st December. We didn't meet that target, and the reason for that was very simple. The infrastructure we are using. By the way, one of the things I've learned is that Zambians know how to use the Facebook, but they don't know how to use the internet. So we have had a bit of challenges in accessing that particular platform, but those challenges have now been addressed, and that is why we have had to extend the period to 28th of February. And I think a lot of those decisions will be made then as to which way to go. We take things step by step.
Okay.
Yeah.
You also touched on how, obviously, for you to garner that 1 million, you need educated people.
Yes.
Educated people, like you said at the beginning, are not that interested.
Mm-hmm.
How can this be remedied? If you could think of one thing that could change the mind of these intelligent people, to get a little more involved.
It's a challenge. I had a conversation with one guy who's a medical doctor, and I was trying to urge him to join the movement. Then he was saying, my career, what? And I was somewhat harsh with him. I said, listen, I'm also a professional. Okay, are you saying your career is more important than mine? Okay, and we all have to sacrifice. And you can't sit there and say your career is more important, but in the meantime, you want the country to be governed properly. Who's going to do it for you? Okay? We all have to roll up our sleeves and work for this country, educated or not educated. So if you're educated, you have a role to play. Now, it's something that we have to combat. One of the reasons why I stepped forward was to set an example in the hope that I'll be able to inspire other privileged and educated people to come forward and be of service to the country. And unfortunately, no country can develop without its best minds. It is a process, and we have to start from somewhere. Elias did his part. He tried it. He pushed the envelope up to a certain point. I've also stepped forward. I'll try and do my best in the situation and to just encourage others to say, listen, we're in this together. And we all have to, educated or not, we are all in the end flesh and blood. Okay, so we have to come forward and hold hands and push this country forward, But it is part of the conversation that we should be having. And my own involvement in this process, because other people are saying, well, I like the observation you made. But we can't go on that way. We have to find a way to step forward and try and make a difference.
Mr. John Sangwa, thank you very much for coming on the program today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I do have one last question that I do want to ask you. And again, so we restricted our conversation really to talking about the movement for national renewal. But this is now away from the movement for national renewal.
Yes.
Right? This is a constitutional question. The Electoral Commission of Zambia, they've recently announced that the delimitation report, or they will push forward the constituencies that will be delimited. Obviously, there's potential for it to be challenged if people feel aggrieved about a particular constituency, etc., etc. Do you see that as a pitfall, considering that there are elections around the corner?
Yes. In fact, one of the pieces I wrote, I said, if you have to do any such exercise, you have to leave it until after the election, because you'll be rushing. People need to be consulted. Okay? It's not just something you can impose. By the way, if you check the Constitution, it doesn't give VCZ the right to impose the new constituencies. Now, what is supposed to happen, by the way, it's not just a situation where you say, oh, this constituency is big, let's split it into two. No. You have to redesign the whole country into the number of the increased constituencies, so that at the end of the day, each constituency has more or less similar number of votes, a similar number of people in that constituency. Okay, so it's not just a question to go to do it arbitrarily to say cut here. No, you have to redesign the whole country, and that is a mammoth task. Okay, you have to consult the people. You may even have to go to the extent of adjusting the boundaries of the districts, the boundaries of the provinces. You have to do that in order to make sure that there is equitable distribution of the population. Now, there is always this misconception. Delimitation has nothing to do with the size of the population. It has nothing to do with the size of the constituencies, but the population. Ordinarily, if we're really honest with ourselves, given the current population distribution, Kanyama, for example, should be split up into 3 constituencies. In fact, the fact that if you look at the province with the highest number, the highest population is Lusaka. Yeah. Lusaka should have more seats, not less. Okay? If you are to do a serious job. This is a serious undertaking that has to be done. But I don't see, I mean...
I've read people say, and I've seen one report, and I've heard those who, the proponents say that it's as simple as doing 7 across the board.
How?
Well, I think the technical report, when they submitted their, to Parliament, they spoke about the fact that the previous report, there was an average that they used, and so 7 across the board, 70 new seats should be fine for every constituency. Again, I'm not sure what that's the actual number.
Yeah, it's not something you do arbitrary.
But that's the thinking that...
It's wrong. And the other point is that whatever happens, people that are aggrieved with that division are at liberty to go to court to challenge that. Yeah. It's not final. Yeah. So to avoid that challenge, it is imperative that ECZ does the proper job. Okay, the idea is, for example, if we have increased the number of constituencies to 200 and the population is 20 million, what you are basically saying that on average, each constituency must have what? 100,000 people. That's what delimitation is all about. Okay? That's what it is all about. It has nothing to do with the size of the constituency, but it has everything to do with the population density. That is why in most countries, urban areas have more seats compared to rural areas because they are sparse in terms of population.
I know you're not a lawyer. As the last question, I know you're not a lawyer anymore, but you are. But you don't practice. I think you know what I mean. Do you? In the last election, you were very quick in saying, if somebody does A, I'm going to do B. Do you foresee a situation where somebody clearly comes and says, listen, guys, in terms of your delimitation, you've gone about this the wrong way across the board rather than just one?
Yes, there is that possibility, yeah. Okay. In fact, that's the way it should be. Okay. I know people have lost faith in our judiciary, but we have no choice because, you see, I wish there was a way to privatize the judiciary, but you can't privatize it, So those are some of the functions that you're stuck with, and you have to find a way to deal with the imperfections within the judiciary. But that litigation is going to happen. I mean, I can clearly foresee that. And there are people waiting just to see what is going to happen. You asked, yes, in the last election I was very active. But again, you tend to move on in life. Yeah. You make your contribution, you move on. Okay. I've left it to some other young lawyers to be able to litigate on these issues. Yeah.
Okay. Again, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
That is Friday's edition of Let the People Talk. Thank you very much indeed for listening.